All right, what's going on, guys? We are officially live. We're talking about the 8% increase revenue lever thing, majigger. Anyways, we're talking about 8% increases in revenue based on one simple trick. I'm gonna just tell you real quick, and then if you want to go over the video and not like hear the rest, then cool. But let's fix up the lighting real quick. Is that better? That's all right. So when it comes down to this increased lever, it's literally based on playing with the billing cycle. So it's actually in this book, but I've been using this technique for a long time, since like 5 years plus, even. But so I'm gonna explain it. I'm gonna explain it in this book, and then give you an example of what I've done with it. And so when it comes down to it, the 8% increase is just you fixing up your building and making it every 28 days versus every 30 days. And just by making it 2 days sooner, which, sometimes we have 31 days in a month, sometimes we have 28, right? Some days we have 30. Most times we have 30. But just by doing that, it equates to you adding 8% more. At least this is what I thought, right? 8% more revenue just based off that move. Now that's not the truth, and I'm gonna tell you that a little bit later when we get into the $100 million book. And so when you do this, you add one extra month's payment. Let me show you a different example. I was actually talking to this guy who's big in real estate, and we're going back and forth. And when I mentioned this model to him, he was like, "Oh, like that's similar to what I say to, people who need help with real estate, which is instead of billing every month, you do it every 2 weeks. And by doing that, you get 26 payments versus the traditional 12 payments, right? So you get more payments that equals more cash flow, if you will. And that also makes it easier for the tenants to pay because it's not such a big high amount, right? And so it makes it more digestible for them. And so you get them on a cycle where they could pay that more often than not. And so this leverage technique is universal with everything, right? And so that 28-day model was put into 2 weeks, right? You could put in a weekly model. There's another example of this guy. His name is Brandon Carter, Gymnasium Jesus, right? He got some thought repellent too. And so what he was talking about, his big thing, he's into fitness coaching. And so if you charge somebody $80 a week, you just need 25 of those clients to have a 6-figure business. And so again, going with the weekly math, it equates to way more because it's like, okay, let's, for the example, it's 88 times 4 is 320. Let's say you charge that for the month. So let's just show you on the good old calculator. So if we do 320 times 12, right, is 3840. If we do that same thing, but times it by 80 in 52 weeks, 4,000. So you make another extra payment basically off of using this technique. And then, of course, it makes it, again, easily digestible for the person to pay for it. It's $80, right? And so it's like $80 for your fitness. Can you do that? $80 a week? You probably can. You probably have that ability. And because of that, it makes it more digestible. Okay, for me, right? The way I applied this was when I had a social media marketing client, and I mean, I applied this multiple times, but this social media marketing client, and instead of doing the billing every 30 days or every month, I did it every 28 days. And that equated to an increase in revenue by, 8%. And so instead of the contract being worth, I want to say it was 24.30 is what I was paying. And so what's great, I'm gonna give you some sauce here. What's great about contracts is that when the person signs the contract and pays the first payment, that equates to the full contract being valid. So if we do 2430 times 12, that equals 29, 160, right? but because I made it so I have that extra payment, it equated to actually a $30,000 contract, right? So basically, with four of those, that's a six-figure business. And even if I only collected the 2430 to begin with, right? And so because of that setup, it equaled better cash flow, right? If you think about it, if you're paying every month, that means that you got to cough up a month extra at the end of the year for your employees, for your expenses, what have you. I mean, not really expenses. And so this is why I have a problem with there's plenty of softwares out there. They're very good. The only problem is the billing. They stick it to either a one time, a monthly, or a yearly. That's usually the staple across the board. And so for me, I'm like, I like controlling my billing so much that it's hard for me to like fully integrate into a software. Even like Go High Level is my bread and butter, if you will. And so I use Go High Level for everything. But then when it comes to billing, I'm like, let me just go to Stripe, do the billing there, and it'll pop up on Go High Level anyways. But it's like again, it's a manual process, right? But at the same time, it's well worth it because if the increase is 8% overall, that's a great figure to have. And so now going into this book real quick, so $100 million offers, right? He mentions the same technique of changing out the billing, but instead of an 8% increase, it's actually a 40% increase. I don't know the math. The math is in this book. So if you want the math, go ahead, grab this book, support the man, um, because like well deserved. And so this is like actually crazy. You know that he already had. This is how good he is. Real quick, off subject, but this says 1 million plus copies sold in the 100 million series, right? This one book sold 3 million ish, if not a little more copies in the first 3 days. And so that's this book in itself sold 100 million, and it proved his point of like, yeah, this man can make 100 million. He made 100 million from the book launch, basically. Anywho, so it's a 40% increase across the board. And so again, all the examples I gave you were wrong. It wasn't 8%, it was 40%, according to the man, the myth, the legend himself, right? But this is so valuable at the same time because if you have this ability to understand billing in a way to just add this tweak in there, well, what's the value of that? If you go to any business now that's a monthly recurring business or annually recurring business, maybe, because it's kind of hard. It's more so like an easy monthly thing than it is to do an annual thing. But so the the monthly, right? You could add an 8% overall increase if you just change the billing slightly. And like what customers, for the most part, customers are not going to care about 2, 3 days. They're going to be like, oh, okay, man, whatever, just fix the billing up. It's no big deal. And then that increases your revenue right there without raising your prices. You don't have to do that without doing a new product, anything crazy. It's just tweaking what you have already, which is customers paying you monthly. So then you just tweak out the billing a little bit, not raise the prices, and then boom, you have this increase. Of course, what I didn't do is mention who I am. My name is Emmanuel Velasco, and I'm on a mission to help 7,200 people learn everything I know from mindset to business and beyond so that they can each help another 7,200 people do the same thing. And if you're looking to be one of those 7,200 people, well, I'm sure I have a link in my description box below. If I don't, just go to emmanuelvelasco.com and reach out to me there. Go to the contact page and you'll be able to send me a message being like, hey, I want to be one of the 7,200. And what I'm going to do too is I'm going to give you a little extra because I really want to help you and I want to make it as easy as possible to help you guys with whatever it is, like because there's 5 realms in this life and you gotta be they say that the person who is good at all is the master of none. But the person who is good at all is the master of life because they have a plethora of skill. Imagine there's multiple things you got to learn as a kid in order to get to your position that you are now. So imagine if you're a kid and you didn't learn how to brush your teeth, right? You got to master that skill, if you will. You didn't learn how to put clothes on. That's another skill, right? Matching. That's another skill, right? Eating, reading, writing, all these skills. You had to learn all these things to be a well rounded adult human being, right? Or a young adult. And so if you didn't have all these skills, then guess what? You'll be pretty useless, right? It's like, hey, all I know how to do is brush my teeth. That's it. That's all I know how to do. So, job, hope you hire me because I need money. But my greatest skill, my only skill is brushing teeth. Well, okay, like you master that, great. But there's a whole bunch more skills that you need when it comes to any job, right? Can you pick things up and put them down? Nah, I could just brush my teeth. Useless. All right. Anyways, here's the phone number. So what I want you to do, if you made it this far in the video, text 7200, right? And at 737-864-0824. I'm gonna say it again. 737-864-0824. Text me there. Don't call. Just text. Right. Real phone right here in my hands. What we were doing the calculator on. But going back to it. Um, when it comes down to it, making these are small, insignificant changes. And actually, um, we have atomic habits here, right? And so it's like the small things add up. So the way you do one thing is how you probably go do everything. If stuff is a mess, then that's probably how your mind is a mess, right? And so for the most part, golly, for the most part, you gotta make sure that you you go ahead and worry, or not necessarily worry, but just the small the small things matter. And so if you focus on the inputs of what the small allows you to do, it's going to equate to a massive result at the end of the day. And you don't realize how massive it is. It's like, okay, if I told you that example, remember with the 2430 equaling 31 whatever it is, well, that's an extra 2430. So if we get four of those, right, we will be missing out basically on 10 grand right there. So instead of having a six-figure business, we'll have a high five-figure business. That's that's a pretty substantial difference if you ask me, just by making that small tweak. So realize that the the tiny things, right? Like this is in the grand scheme of things, this book is tiny for the amount of impact that I could do. And so all these things have massive impact. And so the reason why I was saying that Alex Ramosi thing, by the way, about the 1 million copies is that he didn't even sell 1 million copies yet, but he knew that 1 million plus copies was going to happen. So there's that. Um, that's belief right there. And so going back to it, this one switch creates a massive difference for you just by focusing on building slightly. And then you could start to move into other realms, and then say, okay, post more social media, okay, do more outreach, okay, do this. Like if you got your building straight, man, you're really good to go, because there that is the ultimate tweak, if you will. Because then you go into, of course, controlling pricing, and pricing every year should really increase. And so if you're controlling pricing, you're controlling the invoice. It's like, okay, price increases 10%, let's say, every year. You just increase it by 10%. The billing stuff is an 8% increase. So you're basically hovering around 20% just by those two things. That's massive. And that all that is like playing with one thing, one aspect, billing, right? You're not going crazy, and you're not optimizing your funnel and getting a better conversion rate and all that stuff. No, you're just focusing on the back end, tweaking the back end real quick, and that equals a high lever. Then it's like, okay, if you can increase your show up rate, that's going to be a high lever thing, because it's like, okay, you could increase your closing percentage, but if you're getting the same amount of show up rates, you're closing a little bit more. But if you increase the show up rates and go from maybe like 30% to 40%, a 10% increase, well, on 100, that's going from 30 people to 40 people. And if your conversion rate, let's say, is 25, well, that goes from, what is that? 25 on that, it's like 7.5 people, right? To 10 people. I know there's point 0.5 still exists, right? But to 10 people. And so now you have 10 people instead, without changing anything with your script or anything like that, right? And so focusing on the smart things to tweak is very valuable. And this is one of those things of tweaking your billing. Just slightly tweaking your billing equals just like a very optimized business. And then, of course, if you do all these things now, I didn't even mention how what the percentage of tweaking the show up rate does, right? It gets you two more sales, two and a half more sales. But it's like, again, that who is that 5% increase, a 10% increase? Well, again, at the numbers that I was at 2430, right? 2,430. It's like that's a whole extra um over 5 grand that I added to the whole mix a month, let alone the year. The year, it's like, okay, if it's um one or should I say it like this, because the annually of it is actually 31 and some change. So just by tweaking the show up rate, it equals out to me making 62 more $1,000 a month is what I'm adding, right? And so it's like two for the next 12 months. That's massive. 24 people times 61, or 31. I don't know what that is. I want to say that's close to 700,000, right? And it's just, again, a slight tweak. You're not changing anything else. You're not going from a 25% um, close rate to a 30% close rate. This is all just tweaking the billing, right? Or sorry, billing and mixing that with the show rate at this point now that we're talking about. But it's like, again, focusing on these small details that people would more so focus on the closing rate. I gotta get my closing rate better. But if you get the show up rate better, the closing rate doesn't have to change. It can stay the same, and you get a massively better result than what it was before. So this is the game that you really got to focus on. It's like, okay, if I want longevity in this business and to establish a business in a proper way, you got to think about invoicing, because that's part of it, right? A lot of businesses out there are not reoccurring. When I was a mobile mechanic, it's not a reoccurring thing. So this really didn't apply to me necessarily in the mobile mechanic sense. At the same time, there's other things that could be added in the mobile mechanic sense. For example, this is all billing again. Shop supplies is something that's always added to everybody's bill. It's $40, right? That is pretty much pure profit, because yeah, you're going to use some shop supplies, you're going to use some rags, some sprays, some this and that. But for the most part, the parts markup should handle all that and then some, right? So on it's between 25 to 50% of a parts markup when people do that. I didn't do that necessarily when I was doing my mobile mechanic work, but people do that. And then the reasoning behind that is, A, because we do a warranty. And so if you come back, we warranty it out and we don't charge you anything for it if it's our mistake, right? But now, so shop supplies plus a 35 or a 25 to 50% increase in the parts, it's like, okay, that equals a way better bill, right? For you at least, because you're doing all this work. And then plus your hourly rate, which if it's 120, let's say, for the example, you get 2 hours of labor. Okay, that's 240. That's purely profit you're eating off of that, right? Plus the 40 shop supplies, now you're at 280. Plus the markup of 25, 50%. It's like, okay, now you're able to actually make a decent income for yourself. And mind you, like working on cars is some body breaking work, to be honest. But again, tweaking the building is so important. Even the first shop that I worked for, I was going to buy it, but I didn't take care of one of the 5 pillars, which the one that I didn't take care of was health. And so I let my health drop all the way. I was almost 300 pounds. And so I wasn't able to work the shop, um, because I was going solo dolo with, because again, I wasn't business savvy just yet. And so the way he said that he did his billing is that every time he does a brake job, he adds $25 as a resurfacing fee for each rotor. So that ends up being, if you're getting all four, $100. So resurfacing is a thing, but with new rotors, you don't have to resurface them. But they do come with this like greasy goo from the factory that you need to wipe down. So you need to wipe down the surface, right? The front and back, and you use brake clean for it. And so it's like shop supplies again. But it's like you're resurfacing it basically by spraying it, cleaning it up, making sure it's good, doing the other side. You should get paid for that, right? And then again, if you're working the machine, right? The machine is it's another process, right? But it's like you universally, when it comes to brake jobs, it's like, boom, okay, you do resurfacing fee, regardless if it's used or new, right? Or if you're resurfacing the old rotors or putting new ones on. And so now every brake job adds $100 more. So in my head, the most ideal way to go about it is to get to that 250 ticket profit specifically for me, because people talk about the 250, 350 ticket, but it's like they're looking at just the gross of it. And so the gross to me doesn't matter because I don't eat off the gross, I eat off the profit. So by making it profit related, right, and making it 250 profit as a baseline, by adding all these different things in your invoicing, it increases that. But if you're having a monthly based business, it's so much easier, right? All you have to do is literally just change the billing from every month to 28 days. But you can only do that usually on the specific payment processor like Stripe. I know Stripe has the ability. I've been using Stripe for centuries at this point. But that's been the video. Your 8% increase happens with billing. And apparently it's not 8% increase. It's more of a 40% based on the wisdom that's in this book. So if you want to pick this book up, go ahead to Amazon because I don't have a link for you, which I should. But anyways, that's been the video. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Remember, shit, I forgot that I was supporting that. Remember, just hit me up on the phone. Text me if you want help. 7200 is what, so I know that you came from this video. 737-864-0824. And so on that, I'll see you guys tomorrow at 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. Peace.